There is a reason the most dangerous, unsupported man is not the loudest, not the smartest, not the most motivated, not even the hardest working. He is the man who becomes necessary. Because being liked is optional. Being respected is unstable. Being praised is cheap. But being necessary changes the game. When people like you, they can still replace you. When people admire you, they can still ignore you. But when people need what only you can provide, their opinion becomes secondary. This is the cold law most men are never taught. Wealth does not follow ambition. Wealth follows dependency. The world does not pay you because you want more. It pays you because removing you creates pain. And if you are building alone, this is not motivational advice, this is survival. Because the unsupported man has one brutal disadvantage. No one is coming to open the door. But he also has one hidden advantage. No one owns his rise. So the question is not, who believes in me? The question is, what can I control that others cannot afford to lose? That is how a man becomes expensive to exclude. Most men misunderstand wealth because they think it begins with desire. They think wanting more is enough. They think suffering silently should eventually be rewarded. They think ambition, loyalty, intelligence, and effort should force the world to notice them. But the world does not reward hidden hunger. The world rewards visible necessity. This is why some men work hard for years and remain optional. They become reliable, but not essential. They become useful, but not difficult to replace. They become liked, but not needed. And the painful truth is this. A liked man can be ignored politely. A respected man can be admired from a distance. But a necessary man creates consequence. If he disappears, something slows down. If he leaves, something becomes weaker. If he is removed, someone pays a cost. That is the territory where wealth begins. Machiavelli understood this because he did not study men as they wish to appear. He studied men as they behave when power, fear, money, reputation, and survival are involved. He was not writing for comfortable men. He was writing from a world of unstable alliances, borrowed loyalty, shifting power, betrayal, and survival. Florence was not a classroom. It was a battlefield of perception and consequence. That is why his lessons still survive. Not because the world became more honest, because human nature did not change. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands, for everyone can see, but few can feel." He was not giving advice about beauty, he was explaining power. Most people do not evaluate your potential. They evaluate what they can see, your proof, your usefulness, your reputation, your visible command over something valuable. That is why the unsupported man loses when he expects people to recognize what is hidden inside him. Your hunger does not matter if it produces no evidence. Your pain does not matter if it creates no leverage. Your ambition does not matter if it controls no function others depend on. You may be intelligent. You may be disciplined. You may be misunderstood. You may even be better than the men getting the opportunities you want. But if your value is hidden, the market treats it as imaginary. This is where bitterness begins. A man looks at the world and says, "I know I am better than them." Maybe he is. But Machiavelli would not care, because power is not awarded to the man who is secretly capable. Power moves toward the man whose capability is legible. The first law is simple. Make your value visible. The second law is colder. Make your absence costly. Look at Nvidia. For years, many ordinary consumers saw Nvidia as a company that made graphics cards for gaming. That was the surface. Underneath that surface, Nvidia was building something far more powerful. Accelerated computing. graphics processing units, software ecosystems, networking, data center infrastructure, the invisible machinery behind a future most people did not yet understand. Then artificial intelligence exploded. Suddenly, the world did not merely admire Nvidia. It depended on Nvidia. Cloud companies, artificial intelligence labs, enterprises, researchers, and data centers needed the infrastructure Nvidia controlled. In fiscal 2025, Nvidia reported full-year revenue of $130.5 billion, up 114%. Its fourth-quarter data center revenue reached $35.6 billion, up 93% from the previous year. That is not motivation. That is necessity monetized. Nvidia did not become powerful because everyone liked it. It became powerful because the artificial intelligence race created a bottleneck, and Nvidia sat near the center of that bottleneck. This is the business version of the Machiavellian lesson. The man who controls the gate does not need applause from the crowd. The gate itself creates authority. Now bring this down to your own life. If you are unsupported, ignored, doubted, or treated like an afterthought, your instinct may be to seek recognition. You want someone to see your struggle. You want your family to understand. You want your friends to respect the vision. You want society to admit that you have something inside you. That instinct is human. It is also strategically weak. Because recognition without leverage does not protect you. Approval without proof does not feed you. Encouragement without position does not change your life. The unsupported man cannot afford to build his future on emotional permission. He must build on function. A function is something the world needs done. A painful problem solved. A delay removed. A cost reduced. A result created. A fear answered. A desire accelerated. A system improved. When you control a valuable function, you stop asking people to believe in your potential. You force reality to deal with your output. That is the difference between ambition and necessity. Ambition says, I want more. Necessity says, they lose something without me. If you are the right man for this channel, stop mistaking consumption for progress. You already know comfort will not build your future, but your real problem is lack of structure, proof, and ruthless positioning. If you keep watching ideas without turning them into evidence, you will become an educated spectator of your own decline. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on power, reputation, strategy, and self-command, so you can stop drifting and start building from a colder operating system. That is not for men who want entertainment. It is for men who are done being optional. The decision is yours. Now understand the deeper mechanism. You become necessary when your absence creates cost. Not when people agree with you. Not when they understand you. Not when they think you are talented. When your absence causes delay, loss, confusion, weakness, missed opportunity, or reduced advantage, you have entered the territory of power. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two has to be wanting." This line is often misunderstood by shallow minds. He was not saying a man should become cruel for pleasure. He was saying that love is unstable when it depends on convenience. In his political world, fear meant consequence. A ruler was safer when betrayal, removal, or disrespect carried a cost. In modern life, you are not a prince ruling subjects. You should not seek to intimidate people. But the underlying mechanism still matters. Respect becomes stable when people understand there is a cost to dismissing you. In business, that cost is lost revenue. In career, it is lost capability. In reputation, it is lost trust. In influence, it is lost access. In wealth, it is lost value. So stop trying to be liked by people who do not need you. Stop trying to be understood by people who do not depend on your output. Stop trying to be supported by people who are not invested in your rise. A weak man asks, why do they not believe in me? A strategic man asks, what must I build so their belief becomes irrelevant? But this creates the next question. How does a man with no support become necessary in the first place? Most men call themselves unlucky because it protects their ego. They say they had no support, no connections, no rich family, no mentor, no one believed in them. And maybe all of that is true. But Machiavelli would ask a colder question. What did you control while fortune was against you? He wrote, fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half, or perhaps a little less. This is not optimism. This is responsibility without comfort. He admits fortune exists, birth matters, timing matters, networks matter, luck matters. But he refuses to let fortune become an excuse for paralysis. If fortune controls part of the game, then preparation controls the rest. Look again at Nvidia. The artificial intelligence boom was fortune, market timing, technological acceleration, global demand, a wave rising across the world. But Nvidia's position was not luck alone. Years before the boom became obvious to ordinary people, Nvidia had already built hardware, software, developer tools, and data center capability that made it difficult to replace. Fortune opened the battlefield. Preparation decided who was already positioned. That is the lesson. The world will always create waves, but only prepared men can ride them. Luck matters most to the man who failed to prepare for it. The unsupported man cannot control who believes in him, but he can control what skill he builds, what proof he publishes, what problem he studies, what market pain he chooses to solve, what function he becomes known for. Do not build your identity around being unlucky. That may be true, but if it becomes your identity, it becomes your prison. The unsupported man's advantage is that pressure arrives early. He does not have the luxury of fantasy. He learns faster that no one is coming. And if he is intelligent, he stops begging fortune and begins building position. But position alone is not enough. A man can be skilled and still invisible. A man can be disciplined and still ignored. A man can be valuable and still treated as optional. Because hidden value is treated like non-existent value. Your work does not speak for itself unless it is placed where the right people can hear it. Your discipline does not matter if it leaves no evidence. Your intelligence does not matter if it controls no outcome. The world does not reward invisible potential. It rewards visible proof. This is one of the hardest truths for quiet, competent men. Less capable men can pass you. Louder men can attract opportunities. Average men with better presentation can rise faster than silent men with deeper ability, not because the world is fair, because most people do not experience your reality. They respond to your appearance. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This is not shallow, it is structural. People do not have time to investigate your soul. They judge signals, results, reputation, associations, consistency, confidence, proof. The man who refuses to manage appearance leaves his reputation in the hands of others. And when others control your narrative, they control your opportunities. Steve Jobs learned this in a brutal way. He helped create Apple. But creation did not protect him from being forced out. The man who helped build the kingdom was removed from the kingdom. That is the first lesson. Being important once does not protect you forever. But Jobs did not return by begging Apple to remember what he had done. He did not return by demanding emotional justice. He did not return by explaining his pain to people who had already removed him. In exile, he built NXT. Years later, Apple acquired NXT because it needed technology for its next operating system. Jobs returned not because he was liked again, but because he had built something Apple needed. That is necessity, not revenge, not pleading, not explanation, proof. This is the modern law. If your value cannot be seen, measured, repeated, or trusted, the market treats it as imaginary. This does not mean you become fake. The fool chooses only appearance. The naive man chooses only substance. The strategic man builds substance and frames it correctly. Your skill needs proof. Your proof needs distribution. Your distribution needs consistency. Your consistency becomes reputation. Your reputation becomes leverage. Your leverage becomes wealth. So stop saying, "My work should speak for itself." That is a child's belief. Work speaks only when it is placed where the right people can hear it. A man with hidden value is still treated as optional. A man with visible proof becomes harder to ignore. But visible proof alone is not enough, because some proof gets attention but does not create wealth. The next question is sharper. What kind of proof makes a man necessary? There are only 3 clean paths for an unsupported man to become necessary. Control a skill. Control proof. Control distribution. Everything else is decoration. A skill creates usefulness. Proof creates belief. Distribution creates access. Together, they turn an unsupported man into a strategic asset. Without skill, you are noise. Without proof, you are a claim. Without distribution, you are invisible. And invisible men do not get paid according to their potential. They get paid according to their perceived replaceability. Path 1. Control a skill. A skill is not a hobby. A skill is a weaponized function. It solves a painful problem. It reduces cost. It creates money. It saves time. It increases status. It gives others an advantage. If your skill does none of these, it may be interesting, but it is not yet powerful. Do not say you are learning video editing. Say you are learning how to hold attention, increase retention, and turn dead footage into watch time. Do not say you are learning copywriting. Say you are learning how to move desire, reduce hesitation, and turn attention into action. Do not say you are learning artificial intelligence automation. Say you are learning how to remove wasted hours from a business. Do not say you are learning sales. Say you are learning how to convert uncertainty into a decision. The market does not pay for your label, it pays for the pain you remove. Machiavelli wrote in The Art of War, "Discipline in war counts more than fury." In modern life, discipline also counts more than emotional intensity. Motivation is fury. Skill is discipline. The market does not care how badly you want freedom. It cares whether you can produce a result. Path 2. Control proof. Proof is evidence that you can create outcomes. Not intention, not potential, not pain. Outcomes. This is why case studies matter. Portfolios matter. Testimonials matter. Data matters. Demonstrations matter. Before and after results matter. Before and after results matter. Public essays matter. Videos matter. Audits matter. Breakdowns matter. Documented processes matter. Machiavelli's world was built on reputation because reputation condensed information. Men could not know everything directly, so they judged by signs. The same is true now. Your proof is your modern reputation. If you say you are disciplined, no one cares. If you publish a body of work for 6 months, they start to believe. If you say you can help a business grow, no one cares. If you show before and after results, they start to listen. If you say you understand strategy, no one cares. If you break down real systems clearly in public, they start to associate your name with insight. The unsupported man must stop asking people to trust his intention. He must build evidence so strong that trust becomes rational. Path 3. Control distribution. Distribution means access to attention. An email list, a YouTube channel, a network, a sales pipeline, a reputation in a niche, a platform, a body of work that travels without you begging. A skilled man with no distribution is dependent on gatekeepers. A skilled man with distribution becomes harder to control. This is why creators, consultants, founders, writers, and specialists who build audiences often gain leverage faster than equally skilled men who remain hidden inside systems. Skill makes you useful, proof makes you believable, distribution makes you reachable. Necessity is built where these three overlap. Valuable skill plus visible proof plus reliable distribution equals strategic necessity. That is the formula. Not affirmations, not vague ambition, not believe in yourself. Control a painful function. Document your ability. Put the proof where the market can see it. Repeat until your name becomes associated with a result. The unsupported man must stop thinking like a rejected outsider. He must think like an emerging institution. An institution owns functions. An institution produces proof. An institution distributes its narrative. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are building the evidence that makes choosing you rational. But there is still a trap. Many men build skill and proof, then destroy their leverage through weak alliances. Support is not always help. Sometimes support is ownership disguised as kindness. Sometimes the hand that lifts you later claims the right to direct you. This is why the unsupported man must be careful who he lets into his rise. If no support is painful, why can support be dangerous? Because every alliance has a price. Some prices are visible, most are not. If you accept weak alliances, you may gain comfort but lose command. You may gain applause but lose direction. You may gain access but become dependent. And a dependent man cannot negotiate from strength. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "He who causes another to become powerful ruins himself." This line belongs to politics, but the mechanism applies carefully to modern life. Do not distort it into paranoia. It does not mean never collaborate. It means understand dependency. If your rise depends entirely on someone else's platform, permission, money, approval, audience, or access, then your position is fragile. You may look powerful while being structurally owned. That is why Machiavelli distrusted mercenary arms. In The Prince, he warned that mercenary forces are dangerous because they are not truly yours. They serve while convenient. They lack loyalty rooted in your survival. Modern mercenaries are not soldiers. They are borrowed audiences, borrowed credibility, borrowed discipline, borrowed confidence, borrowed networks, borrowed status. The unsupported man must build owned power. Owned power means a skill no one can remove from your body. Proof no one can erase from your history. Distribution no single gatekeeper fully controls. Reputation built through repeated outcomes. Cash flow tied to value, not permission. That is why weak alliances are dangerous. They feel like shortcuts. But some shortcuts create invisible chains. You do not reject all help. That would be foolish. You reject help that makes you softer, dependent, or owned. You accept alliances only when they increase your leverage without destroying your command. A strategic man asks, what does this alliance cost? Who gains control? What happens if they leave? Can I still stand without them? But there is a deeper reason. Weak alliances seduce unsupported men. They are still hungry for validation. And men who need love become easy to govern. Your need to be believed may be the last chain around your neck. Not your poverty, not your background, not your lack of support, your need for permission. Why do unsupported men over-explain? Why do they tell their plans too early? Why do they seek approval from people who have never built anything? Because part of them still wants to be chosen. If you do not kill this need, it will quietly sabotage you. You will announce before you build. You will explain before you prove. You will ask for emotional validation from people who benefit from your hesitation. And every time they doubt you, your energy will leak. Machiavelli wrote, "Love is preserved by the link of obligation, which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage." Again, do not read this like a cartoon villain. Read it as political realism. Love, approval, and support are unstable when they are not tied to interest, structure, or necessity. People support what benefits them, what flatters them, what they understand, or what already looks safe. But unsupported ambition is often none of these. It threatens their worldview. It exposes their excuses. It makes your old environment uncomfortable. So they doubt you, not always because they hate you, sometimes because your ambition forces them to measure their own surrender. This is the cold insight. Do not build your future on emotional bonds that have not survived your rise. Affection is not strategy. Approval is not proof. Encouragement is not leverage. The unsupported man must replace validation with evidence. Every hour spent explaining the future to doubters should be spent creating proof that makes explanation unnecessary. If you are a man building alone, stop confusing emotional stimulation with strategic transformation. You already know you need discipline, but your problem is not lack of quotes. It is lack of a system that forces your life to produce proof. If you keep seeking motivation while avoiding measurable results, you will stay inspired and remain replaceable. Inside Patreon, you get unfiltered strategic lessons, deeper power breakdowns, and practical frameworks for building reputation, leverage, and self-command, so you can turn isolation into structure. This is not for passive viewers. It is for men who want to become difficult to ignore. The decision is yours. You are not abandoned. You are unowned. And that means no one gets to claim credit for what you become. The boy in you wants someone to believe. The man in you builds until belief becomes irrelevant. But if proof is the answer, what kind of proof creates money? To answer that, you must define wealth correctly. Most men want wealth because they want comfort. That is why they remain weak. A strategic man wants wealth because wealth increases control. Control of time, control of movement, control of choices, control of refusal, control of the conditions under which he lives. Why does money follow power more reliably than effort? Because effort is common, power is rare. If you worship effort alone, you can become exhausted and still poor. You can be loyal and still replaced. You can be hardworking and still invisible. You can sacrifice for years and still have no leverage. Machiavelli would not be impressed by your suffering. He would ask, what position did your suffering buy? Airbnb gives a useful early-stage example. Before it became a global company, its founders were struggling for money and traction. During the 2008 United States election, they sold themed cereal boxes called Obama O's and Captain McCain's to raise cash and attract attention. Wired reported that this story helped them impress Y Combinator, which later accepted them in January 2009 with seed funding. The lesson is not sell cereal. The lesson is resourcefulness under pressure. They had no clean path, so they created proof of persistence, persuasion, and survival. That proof became part of their credibility. Machiavelli would recognize the mechanism. Necessity forces invention. Pressure reveals capacity. Men without resources must create leverage from whatever terrain exists. Wealth is not paid to the man who merely works. Wealth is paid to the man who controls a function inside a system of desire, fear, status, or survival. People pay to reduce pain. People pay to gain advantage. People pay to avoid loss. People pay to increase status. People pay to move faster. People pay to access what they cannot create alone. So the question is not, how do I make money? The better question is, what painful dependency can I position myself near? Stop seeing yourself as a man looking for income. See yourself as a man searching for a dependency to control. The employee asks for a raise. The strategist asks what function the organization cannot afford to lose. The beginner asks how to get attention. The strategist asks what pain the market already has and what proof would make him trusted. Once you find a market pain, you need a protocol. Without protocol, ambition becomes noise. Unsupported men do not need more emotional noise. They need a sequence, a cold protocol, a way to move from invisible ambition to visible necessity. What does a man actually do if he has no support, no network, and no one opening doors? He builds position through 5 moves. Move 1. Pick a market pain. Do not start with your passion. Start with pain. What do people urgently want solved? Where are businesses losing money? Where are creators losing attention? Where are professionals losing time? Where are customers confused, delayed, embarrassed, or frustrated? Pain creates demand. Demand creates opportunity. Opportunity creates the battlefield. Move 2. Build a skill around that pain. Do not build random skills. Build a skill connected to a painful function. Sales, copywriting, artificial intelligence automation, video editing, data analysis, lead generation, software development, paid acquisition, operations, design that converts, content strategy, financial modeling, negotiation. Choose one painful function and become dangerously useful. Move 3. Create measurable results. Do not say, I am good. Prove it. Before and after. Numbers. Screenshots. Case studies. Client outcomes. Public breakdowns. Visible assets. People judge what they can see. So give them something to see. Move 4. Publish proof. A private result has limited power. A published result becomes reputation. Write essays. Make videos. Build a portfolio. Publish audits. Show transformations. Break down systems. Teach what you are learning. Display evidence without begging. You are not posting for validation. You are building a public record of competence. Move 5. Refuse weak alliances. Do not partner with desperate men. Do not attach your future to undisciplined people. Do not accept opportunities that make you dependent on someone else's chaos. A weak alliance is fury. An owned system is discipline. The protocol is simple. Pain to skill. Skill to result. Result to proof. Proof to distribution. Distribution to leverage. Repeat this long enough, and your identity changes. You are no longer a man asking to be helped. You are a man building evidence. Evidence becomes reputation. Reputation becomes trust. Trust becomes access. Access becomes money. Money becomes freedom. Freedom becomes command. The unsupported man does not need sympathy. He needs structure. He does not need everyone to believe in him. He needs a function to master. He does not need applause. He needs proof. He does not need permission. He needs leverage. But this path has one final enemy, not poverty, not doubt, not loneliness. The final enemy is softness toward your old identity. The weakest part of you still wants to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. That part must die, not physically, not dramatically, strategically. It must lose authority over your decisions. Why do men return to old environments, old conversations, old doubts, old habits, and old approval seeking? Because the old identity is familiar. And familiarity is often mistaken for safety. If you keep your old identity alive, you will sabotage your rise. You will build for 3 days and seek approval on the 4th. You will gain discipline, then explain yourself to people who drain it. You will make progress, then return to environments that reward your former weakness. And eventually, you will call your retreat realism. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must learn how not to be good." This is one of his most dangerous lines. It is also one of the most misunderstood. He is not saying, become evil. He is saying that a ruler who knows only how to be conventionally good will be destroyed by men who do not share his restraint. Modern application must be limited and ethical. This does not mean exploit people. It means stop confusing goodness with weakness. Stop confusing loyalty with self-erasure. Stop confusing patience with fear. Stop confusing humility with invisibility. Stop confusing kindness with permission for others to waste your time. A man building alone must learn when to say no, when to disappear, when to stop explaining, when to protect his attention, when to choose reputation over momentary approval, when to be misunderstood rather than owned. The old identity wants love. The strategic identity wants leverage. The old identity wants approval. The strategic identity wants proof. The old identity wants comfort. The strategic identity wants control. The old identity asks, will they support me? The strategic identity asks, what can I build that they cannot ignore? You are not trying to become a better version of the man they already know. That is too small. You are becoming someone they cannot accurately predict anymore. Not reckless, not cruel, not loud, necessary. Now all the pieces come together. Machiavelli begins with human nature. Men are not moved by your inner suffering. They are moved by interest, fear, advantage, reputation, necessity, and visible outcomes. That is why he wrote that men judge by appearance, not hidden reality. So the first law is this: make your value visible. Then he teaches fortune and capacity. You do not control your birth, your family, your timing, your initial network, or who doubts you. But you control preparation, skill, boldness, adaptation, and positioning. So the second law is this: do not worship luck. Build position before fortune turns. Then he teaches fear versus love. Love is unstable when it depends on convenience. Modern men should not seek to be feared through cruelty, but they must create consequence through value. So the third law is this: become difficult to dismiss. Then he teaches arms and dependency. A prince who depends on mercenaries is fragile. A modern man who depends entirely on borrowed confidence, borrowed platforms, borrowed status, or borrowed approval is also fragile. So the fourth law is this: own your core power. Then he teaches reputation. A ruler must control how he is seen, because perception governs political reality. A modern man must control his proof, his narrative, his body of work, and his visible results. So the fifth law is this: frame your evidence before others, frame your absence. And finally, he teaches necessity. Men act when pressure forces them. Systems pay when dependency forms. Markets reward those who solve painful problems. So the final law is this: wealth follows the man whose value becomes difficult to replace. This knowledge is dangerous if misunderstood. It is not permission to become cruel. It is not permission to deceive people. It is not permission to worship money. It is a warning. Reality does not bend because you are sincere. The world does not reward the unsupported man for being wounded. It rewards him when he turns isolation into discipline, discipline into skill, skill into proof, proof into leverage, and leverage into necessity. That is the path, not comfort, not applause, not permission. Necessity. If this gave you a colder way to see wealth, power, and human nature, subscribe to Depths of Psyche. This channel is not here to comfort the unsupported man. It is here to sharpen him. Study Machiavelli. Study power. Study markets. Study reputation. Study how men move when interest, fear, status, and necessity are involved. Because once you understand the world clearly, you stop begging it to be fair, and you start building in a way it cannot ignore. No support, no network, no excuses. Build anyway. Do not ask to be included. Become expensive to exclude.